What is the JRPG that means the most to you? The one that will always hold a special place in your heart? One that has impacted your life in some way, shape or form? That is the question that I asked 13 other amazing content creators. This video is a massive collaboration where you'll hear from them all, ending with the game that means the most to me, which most of you will no doubt be able to guess. I would also love to get some discussions going in the comments below. Which single JRPG means the most to you and why? I look forward to reading all of your comments. Before we get into it, a massive thank you goes to everybody who participated. You should definitely check out all of their channels if you haven't already. You can find these links in the description below. Alright, these are our stories about the single JRPG that means the most to us.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Well, Titus Titus, that is not entirely true. Hit that sub button and there will no doubt be many more chances to hear my JRPG story, as well as loads of other awesome videos on JRPGs new and old. Also, if you like this video, hit that like button. It'll help me out a lot. Alright, let's get into it.
Hey everybody, it's SuperDerek. Thank you so much, HellFireRPGs, for having me on to talk about the game that means the most to me, Earthbound. This was the very first RPG that I ever really enjoyed. It was the turn-based RPG that broke the ice. It was my gateway drug that would eventually go on to shape several years of my life, which I've now spent dedicated to talking about RPGs. It's wild to me looking back at it because it's not the sort of game that exemplifies the greatest that the genre has to offer. It isn't necessarily the best. There's a lot of things about Earthbound that haven't aged particularly well. It wasn't even love at first sight, but it was the perfect game for me when I was 12, 13 years old. I went to a game shop looking for a game like The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and the guy behind the counter hooked me up with Earthbound, and I hated it. I wanted a Zelda-like game. But when I finally got into a fight, when I brought it home, I saw this menu and it just didn't make any sense to me. It wasn't until several months later, during a long summer break, nothing to do, I couldn't go outside, I was stuck at home, so I played through Earthbound and I finally made my way through the combat system. I figured out how to equip things, and it finally, at some point, it clicked for me. And I think that part of it was that it was really easy for me to identify with Ness, this young adolescent kid living in a kind of America-like area, you know, fighting things off with baseball bats. It was all very real. The story that it had to tell was very heartfelt, and sure, it was kooky, sure, it was zany, had some gross out humor, which of course I loved, but I think that if it was just that, it probably wouldn't have clicked for me as much as it finally did when I finally beat the game. And the experience of that very sincere, heartwarming story that it has to tell, it changed something inside of me. My heart grew 3 sizes that day. Nowadays, it's kind of mostly seen as this quirky game by this weird dude, Shigesato Itoi, but to me, it really is all about just being a very heartfelt game that takes place in a very familiar setting to me. They say that you can never go home again, but at least for me, with Earthbound, I can.
Boy, oh boy. The price of freedom is steep.
Hello, John aka Chicken Fillets here, and thank you to the one and only HellFireRPGs for having me on this collaboration to discuss that one JRPG which means the most to moi. Now, when I got asked this question, it was a very, very easy choice for me, and that game we are going to discuss is Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII for the PSP. Don't know why I did that. Now, if you're unaware, Crisis Core is the prequel story to Final Fantasy VII. It focuses on Zack Fair. Zack Fair is a soldier operative who has a very big influence to Cloud Strife. The question we've been asked and you want to know is, well, why does this JRPG mean the most to me? To quite simply put it, without Crisis Core, I wouldn't be talking to you just now. I wouldn't have a YouTube channel talking about JRPGs. When I was a wee lad, well, basically I had this self-imposed rule when it came to RPGs that, well, one, it had to have a world map, and this was influenced by Final Fantasy VII, 8 and 9, and it had to have turn-based combat, once again influenced by Final Fantasy VII, 8 and 9. You can see a pattern here, can't you? Now when Final Fantasy X hit the scene, well, I kind of zoned out of JRPGs in general because that game,
you know, world maps, blah blah blah, and it wasn't the same as my Golden Age Final Fantasy games.
yes, I know. Fast forward to many moons later, I am given as a gift Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. I'm finally getting back into gaming full time. I'm getting back into it because of the portability of the PSP. These self-imposed rules that I imposed on myself, how combat should be, that there should be a world map, blah blah blah, was knocked down. It's due to the familiarity of Zack Fair. I knew about him in Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1, but I got to know more, and I got to see Final Fantasy VII from a different perspective. And what this did for me was it opened up a different perspective for JRPGs in general. But the real question here is, what is the JRPG that means the most to you? Well, of course, myself and HellFireRPGs wants to know in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you once again for having me on. This has been John, aka Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye.
It's Miss Bubbles, and I was asked about the JRPG that means the most to me, and when I was trying to track that back, I was like, you know what, let me tell you a quick story. So I'm mostly familiar with Western RPGs. Think Witcher 3, Fallout 4, Skyrim, and the like. My first JRPG was Persona 5, and as you can imagine, I had no idea what I was doing. This was my first time ever trying what was called turn-based battles. Additionally, I had no idea how the calendar worked either, so let's just say I was overwriting my saves and then lost 10 hours of game time. No, I don't want to talk about it. Fast forward to 2019, I was playing some JRPGs here and there, but there was one that was calling my name, and that was Fire Emblem Three Houses. I was terrified of the fact that this is a tactical RPG, but as much as it was outside of my comfort zone, the slice of life elements were literally calling my name, and I had to try it. The way this game is executed, with mechanics slowly getting introduced to you as you play more, as well as the amazing cast of characters, each with their own backstory and motivations, it all made me fall in love with JRPGs, and it made this one resonate with me. I'm not a fan of linear RPGs either. I always like to get sidetracked a little bit, and I feel like the majority of the activities in Fire Emblem's Three Houses that invite you to get to know your student felt like it made up for the freedom that I enjoy in other RPGs. You can choose what you want to prioritize and what to work on, and each hour you play, you get more and more connected to the world overall. This game not only got me out of my comfort zone, but it also made me feel like, hey, I want to try more RPGs and see what's out there. And because of that, I've been slowly getting into more of them. So I'm forever happy that I tried Fire Emblem Three Houses. I love RPGs and cozy games, so if you're interested in that, definitely check out my channel. And thank you so much to HellFireRPGs for inviting me over to this collab. You let me reflect back on my JRPG journey, so I'm forever grateful for that.
Not only is Grandia 2 a excellent starter JRPG, but it is one that is incredibly nostalgic to me for multiple reasons. The first reason why is when I was 14 years old, my friend Joel told me that Grandia 2 was on sale at the neighboring town's Walmart. Well, I didn't have a driver's license, but I was learning to drive. And so the 20 miles from my town to the other town was the furthest I had ever driven, and the first time I'd ever driven into another state with my dad, of course. He was there with me just to pick up this game. There was usually like $59 for just 20. And I tell you what, this game not only became my favorite JRPG of all time, but one that I think is severely undernoticed and underrated. And now you can play it on the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One, and then of course PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the PC. And it is an excellent remaster. The game starts out with you meeting this character named Ryudo, who is a mercenary known as a Geohound. He's misunderstood and oftentimes unwelcome in social circles, yet he's very indispensable because of his skills. And he gets a job early on to escort this songstress of Granis named Elena. And her selflessness compares really interesting to Ryudo's selfishness. And together, not only is Ryudo's life lightened up by Elena, but they, save the world. And the world is really cool and really interesting. No two places are really alike. Every single environment they send you to on this story has a different outdoor environment style. It has different indoor environment styles, dungeons to traverse, things to find out in the world, tons of treasure chests and items to find as you're running around on the map. And you meet an incredible cast of characters. And honestly, it's a great story. It's an awesome story of hope. It's an awesome story of good versus evil. And my favorite thing about it has to be the battles. Grandia 2, in my mind, is one of the best battle systems of any JRPG, and I wish more people would copy it. Kind of picture this. Your characters and enemies are on a timeline, and you want to strategize critical attacks to cancel out your enemies' devastating moves before they can get to your point where they're going to hurt you on the timeline. It is one of my favorite things, and now when I play it, I'm so good at it because I played it so many times, nobody stands a chance against me. I love Grandia 2, and I think everyone should absolutely play it. And in my opinion, it is one of the best JRPG soundtracks of all time. The battle theme, the main battle theme, I absolutely love it. And really, to me, Grandia 2 is more than a game. It's a journey of growth. It's a journey of challenge and hope. And it really sparked a love for JRPGs within me that I never had before. It is absolutely an underrated gem, and you should play it.
Hi there everybody, this is David over at the channel Davidvinc, and Hellfire asked me what RPG really does mean the most to me. And I had to think long and hard about this question, and I finally settled on Dragon Quest V for the SNES. I've been a huge fan of the Dragon Quest series ever since I was a little kid. I literally grew up on it. But when the SNES rolled around, Enix left the American market and Dragon Quest went kaput. I still remember seeing articles about Dragon Quest V though in the Nintendo Power, and I really wanted to play it. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be until about 2002 that I would get the chance to. When the game was finally fan translated, I was in college, and I was going through some really rough times grappling with coming out, as well as being completely ostracized by all of my former friends and family. But old faithful, tried and true Dragon Quest was there for me to get through all this. I saw the tragedy that the hero went through, from losing his parents to being sold into slavery, to even being turned into stone and losing his children. But no matter what happened to our intrepid hero, he never lost hope. He never lost faith, and he kept on going. He kept on pushing forward and being true to himself, and I am 100% serious whenever I say that this game may have in fact saved my life. It came out at the right moment, and the right place, and the right time for me to get through all the adversity that I was going through, and still persevering and being true to myself as a person. Thank you so much, Hellfire, for allowing me to come on your channel and tell just a little bit of my story, and I do hope to see all of y'all over on my channel, Davidvinc, as well. Have a good day, everyone.
Howdy my totally tubular gamers, it's your boy Jonathan. Thank you Hellfire for having me on, you really are the man. Now when looking back at the hundreds of JRPGs I've played over the years, the JRPG that means the most to me has to be Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door for the GameCube. I was under 10 years old and I remember getting this game as a gift in the mid-2000s, and this game just blew my freaking mind. I had never played anything like this at all. It was a lot of firsts for me. I had never played an RPG before, a turn-based game, or a game with such a deep, long narrative. I was used to playing games like Mario Sunshine or licensed kid games like those SpongeBob platformers, so this game just felt like a whole new world to me. The game's aesthetic and visuals were so strange and alien to me. They were flat, but the world was 3D and I couldn't help but not look at it. There was a lot of reading, the characters talked a lot, the story had a lot of moving parts. It also kept evolving and changing. I was used to very one-note stories like Go Save the Princess, The End. The world and characters were so interesting and full of life. They all had their own unique stories and personalities, and I really just wanted to see more of them. It really showed me what a game's story was capable of, and then the idea of taking turns in battle was just totally new to me, and I loved it immediately. I could take my time and try to plan out what attack I was going to do next, and then having to press the action button at the right time really kept me on my kid toes and made sure I was always paying attention. it kept me really engaged, and I never wanted this game to end. I played it for weeks. I remember being ready to cry when I finished it because I just didn't want it to end, and so then I played through it again, and again, and again, and I'm sure I'll play the remake all the way through, and again. Yeah, you get the point. This game really cemented my affinity for turn-based RPGs and really showed me what they were capable of. The games didn't have to be so simple. They could have complex storylines and characters, and the combat in games didn't have to be so straightforward as well. Now, after playing through The Thousand Year Door a few times, I remember getting on my dad's computer and looking up video games that are like Paper Mario, and that's really when I discovered the term RPGs, and the rest really is history. I would go on to check out several other RPGs like Pokemon and the other Mario RPGs, but every few years, I do like to come back to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door because this really is the game that started it all. It's all thanks to this game that I love RPGs as much as I do. And I think what helped solidify my love for RPGs was just how fantastic this game is. All these years later, The Thousand Year Door is still one of the greatest RPGs ever, and I was so excited they're finally remaking it. You know I'm gonna be all over that. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, man. I love this game to pieces. And if you still haven't tried The Thousand Year Door at this point, I really think you should.
Hello everyone, Miisho reporting. Thanks for having me here. I'm a little digital artist with JRPG addiction. I love doing fan arts and sometimes upload speed paints of these on my channel. And I'm here to gush about Suikoden. While Suikoden 2 is my favorite JRPG of all time, I'll be talking about its predecessor, Suikoden 1, which I love just as much.
English is not my first language, so please forgive my accent.
Starting with the thing I love the most about Suikoden 1, the story of the rune, the Soul Eater. The rune that feasts on the souls of those you're close to. This concept and how it intertwined with the main character Tyr breaks my heart every time. It's dark and depressing, and I love it. Looking back at it, it made me devastated seeing Ted's arc and his personality from Suikoden 4, how lonely and secluded he was, the change he had when he befriended Tyr. Despite him knowing that Soul Eater might come for his friend's soul, that was the cherry on top. Then I always wondered about how the rune will have an impact on Tyr's personality, which was really better shown in the drama CDs. If you haven't listened to those, do yourself a favor and do it now. I don't want to get into more details to avoid spoilers, but man does the story feel dark, despite how vibrant and colorful the game looks. Which brings me to the second thing I admire, Tyr and his friends, Ted, Rinyu, Ryo, and Pan. This group was such a pain and joy at the same time. I love how we get different views of them throughout the game, as well as the different fates they have with each ending. And I just love Rinyu so much. Give this man a hug. Another thing I fancy about Suikoden is the concept of the Stars of Destiny. This is one of my favorite elements in the Suikoden games. There are a lot of characters with great stories expanding further in Suikoden 2 and 3, which just makes the journey all the more worth it. While I mostly love the story and characters in Suikoden 1, the combat variation was such a beauty. Specifically the very cool one-on-one fights, the ones near the end, if you get the one I mean. It was a very rewarding experience. It just brings more tension to certain events and makes them all the better. Better or bitter? Both is good. Need I mention how good the music is? Just listen to Greg Minister's BGM and tell me you didn't clap with the beat halfway through. All in all, Suikoden 1 is a very beautiful JRPG on its own. I love it so much. Even better when linked with Suikoden 2 later. It is and will always be one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. Absolutely beautiful and short for all the better.
Hey guys, Soldier First Class here, and just wanted to say thank you to HellFireRPGs for having me on the video. I really appreciate it. Just sharing some love for some JRPGs, and my selection for today for my RPG that means the most to me, not necessarily my all-time favorite, but it is one of my favorites. It's in my top 2. So that would be Final Fantasy X, and I own every copy from PS2 to PS4 to PC and everything in between. I even still have my strategy guide. It is one of the most influential JRPGs, I feel, for me, as not only a person, but also as a gamer. It came at kind of the perfect time for me. My grandma had died, and I had bought a copy of Final Fantasy X, and its emotional storytelling, just the atmosphere of it really helped me get through that. Also, growing up, I didn't have the greatest relationship with my dad, and Titus's struggle with the relationship with his father and like his eventual coming to terms with that, and then his eventual forgiveness of his father really impacted my life at a time when I really needed it. And so for those big reasons, Final Fantasy X will always be one of the most influential JRPGs on me as a person. And when it comes to like gameplay, statistical progression, story, everything, Final Fantasy X is kind of this perfect storm of experimental, but also mixed with the old. Obviously, it was one of the first games that I can remember having voice acting that was, I mean, it's on the back of the box where it says characters with voices right up here. So clearly this game came at a time where voice acting and stuff like that wasn't as normal as it is today. And it just kind of, as much crap as everybody gives the dub of it, it's truly one of my favorite voiced games of all time. I also really like the combat system, being able to switch out characters in and out mid-combat. I feel like that's something that needs to be brought back to modern RPGs for the most part. And its conditional turn-based battle system was one of the best that I've ever played. In fact, it's my favorite turn-based system of all time. So Final Fantasy X has a lot of special things about it, and the music alone is award-worthy. If you don't get emotional while listening to Xanarkand, I don't know what to tell you. Also, Otherworld, I mean, come on. It's got some just absolute bangers. It's got great music. And the atmosphere, it sells the atmosphere to you. Like, the atmosphere of the game is sold very much by its music and its characters and all the diversity and everything else in the character cast. And even in the world itself, there's a lot of different, unique people. And it's really awesome to see. I think another thing, too, would be that I really enjoy the overall just aesthetic. I enjoy pretty much, like, all the summons are great. I love every single summon in the game, including the secret ones. It has some of the most frustrating mini-games, but otherwise, Final Fantasy X is an incredible game that if you have not ever picked up and played, I highly recommend you do so. Thanks again, and enjoy.
Hey everybody, it's the Legendary Zoltan. What game means the most to me? That's a really hard question, but I think the answer is Xenogears for the PlayStation. What are the two greatest things in this world, objectively? Video games and 90s anime. Xenogears is a video game homage to mecha anime. Mostly Gundam and Evangelion from what I can tell. I haven't watched much Gundam, but I did watch Evangelion back in the day, and I can tell you that Xenogears also has some of what makes Evangelion compelling to watch. The thing about Xenogears is that you can't enjoy it if you're not here for the story. The game is at least a 70-30 cutscene to gameplay ratio. You can't skip anything, and you can't alter the slow text speed, so you really gotta be here for the story. Back when it came out, the graphics were top tier for PS1 games, and when I saw it for the first time, I thought it looked absolutely amazing. I was at a friend's house and he let me play it. The opening anime movie goes hard to get you hooked. It shows a spaceship that has its weapons taken over and is attacking itself. The captain orders everyone to evacuate and then self-destructs the ship. The captain goes down with the ship and it crashes onto the nearby planet. And from the wreckage emerges a naked woman with purple hair. The high quality of the animation and the music help to hook you, but equally effective are all the questions it leaves in the player's mind. Who is that woman? How did she survive the crash? Is she the only one that survived? Why is she completely unscathed and naked? What even took over the ship? Very slowly over the course of the game, you will get answers to these questions. And with every question that gets answered, 3 more questions will be raised. It's a very mysterious way of telling stories, and I think it's very effective. By the end of the game, you'll realize that nothing was what it seemed. The story is full of mind-blowing moments. There is even a psychological episode somewhat similar to the one in Final Fantasy VII. I won't spoil anything, but let me say that it's one of the things that makes the main character more interesting than your average shonen protagonist. When you consider how my tastes have changed over the years, it's kind of surprising that a game this story-heavy is the one that made me a hardcore JRPG fan. I still love a complex, crazy story like this in my games, but I'm far more concerned about gameplay now. And these days, I often skip cutscenes in games. But it's basically impossible for anyone to play Xenogears and not feel a lot of things. Now rest assured, this game is not a visual novel. There is in fact gameplay. There are plenty of dungeons with random battles. There is a skill system and equipment. Most people don't have much to say about the dungeons other than that the jumping sucks. But they tend to agree that the boss battles are really great. Most of them have a puzzle aspect that makes them memorable. There are several that will take 0 damage if you don't do the right thing, creating panicky excitement. Most people remember the first difficult boss in the game. It's a badass looking mech named Calamity. If you didn't upgrade your mech before fighting Calamity, you are as good as dead. There are a lot of bosses with really cool mech designs, and they all pose a decent challenge. That, combined with the story, is what always captures people who play Xenogears. If you want the 90s mech anime experience in JRPG form, you need to play Xenogears. It's a whole new world.
Hey, thanks for inviting me along. I'd love to tell you all about the JRPG that means the most to me. Many of you may be familiar with the now defunct video store called Blockbuster, where you could hire not only VHS and DVDs, but also games and sometimes game systems. It was on one rainy Friday night that my mother had taken me to the store to hire out a game for the weekend. Looking up on the shelves of SNES boxes, among the myriad fighters, sports titles, and platformers, I saw a box that bore a gleaming orb suspended above lava, with mountains and stone ruins spiraling outward from it all. A man in a red cloak, with a stern look on his face, surveyed the scenery from high above, looking out over the wastelands, the material of his attire blowing in what was almost a hollow, dead wind. This art captivated me and caused me to pick the game up on the spot. Little did I know at the time that this treasure was a very rare one that only released in Japan and PAL territories. Terranigma, a game that tells of the struggles of humanity and of the enduring hope that espouses the curiosity for the unknown, keeping life thriving in even the most barren of environments. Terranigma had such a profound impact on me as a child, from its various locations, characters, concepts, and even the music. I cannot listen to the OST these days without feeling a sense of sadness and swelling of the heart for the moments that impacted me the most from this title. As the player, we are taken on an adventure to restore the continents of the Earth, revitalize its vegetation, experience the migration of avians, foster the growth of the animal kingdom, and finally look on as humans are reborn, destined to repeat the mistakes of their past. Evolution is a major theme of the game, but through this we also see sacrifice, and are made to question the morality of our own decisions, guided by a riveting story and characters that blaze into your soul. As an action JRPG, we are put through the paces with some challenging battles where our protagonist, Ark, only has use of his quarterstaff and a limited number of spells that must be remade in a town once they are exhausted. There are some harsh difficulty spikes, and areas that I got lost in when I was a child, and I am slightly embarrassed to admit that I would use someone else's cartridge save to bypass my own roadblocks, just to see more of the game, because it was just that good. The fact that Terranigma is based on our world makes it even more exciting, as you can visit historical places of interest such as versions of Europe, the Americas, Australia, and even Tokyo. The sense of exploration within the game always kept me invested in wanting to scour every inch to discover all the secrets that Terranigma has to offer. Sadly, most people living in NTSC territories would not have had the chance to experience the game when it was released, though I hope through the advent and rise of the digital age, people have now taken the opportunity to visit it and experience it for themselves. Through playing the game yourself, I hope that you, too, will be able to capture that essence that made Terranigma such a great game to experience for the first time. Anyway, I don't want to outstay my welcome, so to conclude, Terranigma is the JRPG that means the most to me. Thank you for inviting me, HellFireRPGs. I hope to see everyone around. Bye bye for now.
Hey everybody, it's FemTrooper, and I'm so excited to be a part of this collab because I get to talk about a JRPG that means so much to me, and that is Earthbound because it's my favorite game of all time. Now, of course, why is it my favorite game of all time? It really checks off every box for me. It has the best music, it has the best gameplay, it has the best graphics. Okay, I don't mean the best graphics in that way, but to me, I just love the graphics. I think they're so incredibly unique and adorable, and it's just, it's its own thing. It's so unique. The story is weird and wacky. Everything about this game is strange. You are little kids in the real world. Yes, the real world. There is no going off to other places like you know, Persona, where it's like the real world, but then you go into these dungeons. It's kind of like, no, you're just like fighting, you know, whether you're in a city, you know, outside of the city, you're somewhere, but it's like really unique. It's so different. You're using normal weapons like frying pans but it's something that's very strange. It's like Stranger Things meets The Goonies meets E.T. meets whatever. It's very 90s and late 80s. It really feels like that, and that is my childhood. That is me. I am a person who grew up in the 90s, so I really love this game. I played this game when it came out. I've loved it ever since. I recently replayed it, and yes, it is still my favorite game of all time. It is so special to me whenever I even hear it. I see even the menu sounds, everything about it. It really brings me back to being a kid, and nothing has ever replicated it, and nothing can top it for me. Earthbound is truly a special game, and if you haven't played it yet, I really encourage you to try it, because give it a shot. I do think it holds up because I recently played it and I had no issues with it. It was really fun. I really think you should check it out because it's so unique. Even after all this time, I still don't think we have a lot of games like it. There have been games that try and, you know, mimic it or try and give the same feeling like Undertale or something, but nothing is quite like Earthbound. It's so special. It's so unique. Give it a chance. Check out Earthbound. It's my favorite game of all time. Thank you again to HellFireRPGs for having me on. So exciting. I really love this topic. It's just a really fun one because I want to see what everyone else says. So it's really cool, and definitely check out my channel. I hope to see you there.
What's going on, guys? Up in Nimbus here. So when HellFireRPGs asked me what my most important JRPG was, well, of course, my choice is none other than the original Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, the reasons why the original Xenoblade Chronicles means so much to me, it's simply the fact that this game left an incredibly long and lasting impression after I had completed the main campaign. Now, this entire franchise, each and every game is really special to me, but it is the original game of when I got into the franchise, and I'm so glad it was the original Xenoblade Chronicles because playing them in release order is definitely the way to go and to experience this franchise to its fullest potential properly. Every moment and interaction with the characters in this story is incredibly well thought out, and the foreshadowing is completely next level when it comes to stories within a game. Now, of course, I'm not going to spoil the story and reveal the plot twists that happen throughout this game, as it is definitely something that you need to experience to actually understand what I'm getting at here. Within Xenoblade Chronicles, the sprawling environment and the music is absolutely gorgeous and fantastic. There's so many overworld tracks and boss battle tracks that are so catchy and addictive to listen to, and I find it incredibly difficult to fall in love with the game for every aspect about it. But I do feel like that Xenoblade Chronicles manages to capture the music, atmosphere, story, character development, thematics, philosophy, everything in this game literally is like the best culmination of what I want in a JRPG. But why is this game so special to me apart from just loving it for what it is? Well, the first time I played Xenoblade Chronicles was back in 2015 on the Nintendo 3DS version of the game. And during that time, I was going to university studying Japanese, but also at the time I wasn't really in the greatest state of mind. I felt like at the time I wasn't really seeing enough friends, I was stuck indoors a lot, and I was mainly just focused on studying. However, throughout that entire year, the one game that really stood out to me and pulled me through was Xenoblade Chronicles. I just could not believe the journey I went on and experienced, and that finality within Xenoblade Chronicles, I just wish I could experience for the first time all over again. It is that amazing. Thank you so much once again, HellFireRPGs, for having me on this collaboration of yours. as always in these collab videos, I look forward to everybody else's choice within this video. So until the next time everybody, Upper Nimbus is signing off.
Hello everyone, the Gaming Otter here, and here to talk about a very personal, sentimental game. A game with airships and kingdoms such as Lindenbloom and Bermesia and Alexandria. A thief named Zidane, a princess named Garnet, a black mage named Vivi, a knight named Steiner, and many more characters to come. On this theater ship that comes into Alexandria to kidnapping the princess, we talk about this fair lands and the wonderful game that I like to call Final Fantasy, but not any Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy IX, folks. That's right. I, Nick the Gaming Otter, am a huge fan of Final Fantasy IX, and it really shaped how I feel strongly about JRPGs. It's probably the first JRPG that I ever really, truly remember playing at that age. And when I mean age, I mean 12, 13 years old. A coming of age of sorts. And what do I mean about that? I mean about the morals and values about an inner person. And, you know, everyone likes to obsess about graphics or story or something of the battle system and the sort, but really the characters are the building blocks of the game. And like Zidane says, you don't need a reason to help someone. And what's really beautiful is that even through sorrow, how do you prove that you exist even if we don't? Well, we exist by merely the people that we're around, the people that help give us strength every day, how we lend our strength to others, and vice versa. And even if we're in a dilemma, that if you're fealty at this spending servitude, that you can feel that your life is of value and meaning, even if it doesn't always feel that way. So, anyway, I just want to say that we can all indulge. I do what I want to have a problem, but I also think that at the end of the day, we should be able to enjoy our JRPGs, and you should definitely enjoy this one. Final Fantasy IX is easily my favorite Final Fantasy game, and it was the first Final Fantasy I ever played. So, all I have to say, play this game. Nick the Gaming Otter, recommending it to you. Thank you HellFireRPGs for helping me express my love of this game, and I really think you should play it. It's just such an amazing game. Thank you, and I'll see you guys later. Enjoy!
Wowee, those were some great stories. I always love hearing about the impact that gaming has had on other people's lives, especially when it comes to JRPGs. But now, we're at that point in the video where it's my turn, the game that means the most to me. There are quite a few, but if you've been subbed for a while, you'll be able to guess. I'm going with Suikoden 2. I first played this masterpiece very early in my JRPG journey. Having just completed my very first RPG, Final Fantasy VIII, I really wanted to play something similar, but didn't know where to look. But thanks to a close family friend, the answer kinda just fell into my lap, and I am so glad that it did, because Suikoden 2 had a massive impact on me. If you're out of the loop, Suikoden 2 is about a young soldier, Rue, who gets caught up in a war between the mighty Highland Army and the city-states of Justin. The opening scenes are incredibly impactful, with Ryu's very own Highland Army massacring their very own youth brigade so they can place the blame on the enemy and ignite a war. Lucky to escape with his life, Ryu soon joins the opposing army and eventually leads an army of his own capable of putting an end to the Highlands' tyranny. The story, the characters, and soundtrack are some of the best things about Suikoden 2. There are so many memorable, impactful, and emotional moments that rank up there as the best I've ever experienced in a video game. The promise Rue and Joey make with one another, the epic Luca Blight battle, having Joey turn up outside Muse, the gut-wrenching true ending. These are moments that have remained with me forever and in many ways set the bar for future JRPGs. When I watched the credits roll, I just knew it. After playing 2 epic JRPGs in a row, it was now confirmed that this was the genre for me, and since then, I have never looked back. No longer would I spend my evenings after school playing sports games, platformers, or Bratz dress up, get down, and be a Bratz superstar. Instead, I would be getting completely absorbed into many brand new JRPG worlds and stories. Suikoden 2 also led me to join internet forums where I would spend the next 15 years of my life discussing Suikoden and other great JRPGs and making loads of friends along the way. At one point, I even ran a successful Suikoden roleplay site, and these were some of the best times of my digital life. Fun fact, Venoix, who just discussed his experiences with Terranigma, also ran the site for a while. Castle Northwind, for the win! And while this series may be dead, there is a remaster of the first 2 games on the horizon. This would be the perfect entry point if you haven't touched the series yet. There's also Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, which is a true spiritual successor made by the OG creators, and this game is also amazing. And there we have it, the JRPGs that mean the most to us. Once again, thank you so much to all of the content creators who participated. It was so great to hear your stories. And like I said before, you should definitely sub to all their channels if you love your JRPGs. This was HellFireRPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and sub for more JRPG content coming soon. See you next time.